Now, this morning's reading on this wonderful Transfiguration Sunday, the glory of the Lord is seen. We have, in both readings, we have shiny things and shiny people. We have Moses and coming down from the mountaintop, and we have Jesus going to the mountain. Both just shining on folks. And what's interesting, around this glow of glory, I would ask is, where does it come from? Where does it come from? I would say that you say that, yes, with Moses, it's an external thing. And with Jesus, you might want to say it's an internal thing. But as we get to this reading this morning through chapter 9 of Luke, because we jump so much, we jump from chapter 6 from last week to 9, we are taken through the same order in Matthew and Mark of kind of Jesus dispatching the 12, Peter declaring that Jesus is Messiah, and then Jesus talking about his death and resurrection. But what is different is, in Luke's take, there's no get behind me, Satan from Peter to Jesus to Peter. Jesus tells them all about what the cost of discipleship is. And what's important for our reading today is that Jesus is not transformed in the same way in Mark and Matthew. It's not a metamorphosis. He's just simply changed. The word hetero means different, opposite. And so you're trying to figure out what the heck is going on. Okay, we know this story. We've heard this story multiple times. We know Jesus goes to the mountain, he gets shiny, and we're like, wow. And then they want to build, 3 tents. But something different is going on in the text, because by using the word, not using that word metamorphosis, like kind of like butterflies, the whole idea that he completely changed. By just saying that he changed, not transformed, but just changed, what you see is that Luke is trying to connect things to things. Because what we see is that in saying change, he's trying to point to something else. He's trying to point to what causes the change. And he changes it, and what you see is that he is being a narrator. He's connecting things to things. He's weaving words of wisdom through Luke's and into Acts through the way he's telling the story of Jesus. And he's trying to connect this mountaintop experience to another moment earlier when you hear words from God. What you see is that this mountaintop moment and this other moment what I'm talking about is this Jesus' baptism. They both take place while Jesus is praying. They both are connecting the change of who Jesus is with the action of prayer. Now we have this mountaintop moment. We always want to talk about it, and I usually like to defend Peter. I'm one of those people who wants to defend Peter all the time. I want to back him up. When I read Matthew's translation, I try and say, I think Peter's on the right track. But I'm like, okay, but now I get it. Peter gets it wrong. Because when we understand is that in this change, Peter wants to keep it in the mountaintop moment. Peter wants to keep busy. He wants to stay in this moment of glory, this moment of glow, where he wants to build 3 tents, one for Jesus, one for Elijah, and one for Moses. He wants to be a part of what is happening in that moment. He, as the kids want to say, he stay up late, and he gets to stay up with the grown folks. He's like, whoa, wait a minute. We used to peek downstairs and you see the party happening, or people watching television. I want to watch that show too. When you see your family watching TV late at night. All right, maybe y'all don't remember. Okay, I remember. I want to watch your Arsenio Hall show. And Arsenio Hall came on 11:30. I was waiting to find my bedtime. But if I try to sneak in, see what my parents are watching. They're watching Arsenio. You want to hang out with the big folks. And that's what Peter's trying to do. He wants to keep what's happening on this mountain together. But in the midst of his planning, in the midst of him crafting the strategy of trying to understand and get this mountaintop moment, be with the grown folks, God, as they say, what they say, culture eats strategy for breakfast. Well, God ate Peter's strategy for breakfast by interrupting it. He interrupts Peter's plan by saying, hold up. This is my son, my chosen one. Listen to him. See, Peter gets it wrong where it's not about making them comfortable and not placating these gentlemen. He's trying to understand that it's more than just being in the room with the glory folks. It's about he wants to take a part of it. But sometimes you got to understand that, you just can't. You can't hang on other people's shine. You can't hang on other people's cool. You see, I would say, we have Jesus, Moses, Elijah. They're having this holy conversation. They're on the holy mountain, being holy. And Peter's like, I want to get on this. But I'm going to assume that being holy is kind of being hip and cool. And what I mean is, if you are hip or cool, you don't need anyone to tell you that you're hip or cool. You just are cool. Like the Fonz. Remember Fonz from Happy Days? He just hit the wall, boom. Jukebox start working. It's kind of in your being. And I would say that Jesus kind of knows who he is. I would say Moses knows who he is. And Elijah definitely knows who they are as people. What you have before you is the law literally in front of you and the prophets, one of the major prophets, and then you have Jesus. And what Peter doesn't get is that not only are they not equals, God is saying, listen to that guy in the middle. Because it's more than just being in the room. It's the point of what is the point of the room to begin with. What I mean is, God is pushing you to listen to him. Because God is trying to get Peter to understand. John and James understand that it's not to control the holy, but respond to the holy. What I mean is that Jesus is more than just the lawgiver, like Moses, and Jesus is more than just the prophet, like Elijah. He is something more. He is God's son. He is God's chosen one. The one selected to do something different. To respond to the holy, not just be it. So, as we talk about this glory, this holiness, I would call it a glow of glory. Where does it come from? I asked at the beginning. Is it an external thing or is it an external thing? Internal thing or external thing? Well, I think Luke hits it on the head. I already said at the beginning. It's prayer. It's the idea that when this happens, Jesus is tapping into who Jesus is. He's tapping into the godness of his Godheadness. He's also showing us how to do it ourselves. Now, if you remember a movie a long, long time ago, it was called The Last Dragon. Do you remember The Last Dragon? It came out in 1985, Barry Gordy, and there was a hit, The Barge, Rhythm of the Night, and it's the story of Leroy Green, who wants to be a karate master. He is known around Harlem as Bruce Leroy, because Bruce Lee, the Chinese, the kung fu movies from the 70s. And he has completed his training. He has finished everything that he needs to be. And his master has told him, you are done. I can't teach you no more. Now, you have to find the master. And so the whole point of the movie is him running around, this naive 18-year-old running around New York City who doesn't have a clue in the world, doesn't know anything about girls, doesn't know anything about even being a fighter. He literally loves the martial art for what it is. And he's in search of the master. And so he runs around with a belt buckle, believing that this is the master's. And he meets girls, he meets Vanity, and she's a video host, back when we actually had videos on television. And, he meets this bad guy named Show Nuff, who believes he is the shogun of Harlem. He's the big one. He would ask the question when he came in. What they say? Who is the master? Show Nuff. Who is the baddest? Show Nuff. Who is the baddest? And if you like to watch the movie, you can watch it on your own. It's a good, terrible movie. But the point of it is that Show Nuff is going to make Leroy bow down to him because he is, like I said, the master. And of course, Leroy is in search of this master. And of course, there's a love interest. Now, as he goes around, he runs around, he finally does figure out who the master is. The master is a computer that prints out fortune cookies and puts them into the fortune cookie things. That's the master. And then there's, of course, a final fight with Show Nuff. And Show Nuff, again, like I said, is asking Leroy, who is the master? And Show Nuff's hands start glowing red because he's the master. And what's interesting is that as they fight, and Leroy's getting beat up, and of course, Show Nuff is 2 feet taller than Leroy, and Leroy's a little short, a little skinny, like dude. Show Nuff takes Leroy's head, throws him into the water, and says, "Who's the master?" He doesn't say nothing. He's, who's the master? And at some point, I think the third time, because that's called great cinematography. The third time, when he puts his head in the water, and the water comes up, kind of like a baptism, all of a sudden, Show Nuff asks him the question one more time, who is the master? And Leroy, with this gold glow, not red, but gold, smiles, looks him dead in his eyes, with peace in his heart, and says, I am the master. And of course, like any good kung fu movie and good cheesy movie, Leroy beats up the master, does everything, he does some kung fu stuff. You have some Bruce Leroy flashbacks, and you find out that what Leroy was searching for was always inside of him. Amen. Oh, and you think, yes, there you go. He had the glow. And so when we start thinking about what's going on, when we start thinking about in the middle of these fights, in the middle of everything that we're trying to get through in our lives, we realize sometimes in the heart fight for justice, we find that there's a calling to our lives that's a radiant light, a glow that hangs over us our whole lives. And the only time that we are able to maybe sometimes see that and understand that are in prayer. We have to see this glow. We seek the glow. We seek the glow of glory. We seek the glow of God's glory in our own lives, just like Bruce Leroy did. And while we don't know Kung Fu, I don't know karate, but I know crazy. That's all I got to say about that. And that God's glory shines upon us. And when we can receive God's radiance, we can receive God's radiance when we reorient ourselves in prayer. When we think that we can tap into celestial centers when we center ourselves in prayer. The glow of God's glory is inside of you, waiting to be nurtured. It is a fire waiting to be kindled. It is a small voice waiting to be heard. So in this season, as we enter the season of Lent, let us begin to hear, listen, tend to the glow inside of all of us. The glow of the glory of God. Amen.